Hello, folks, and welcome back to The View for a new program called The Breakdown. This is the first one that we're going to do. It won't be as detailed as it may be in the future, but very much the birth child of this man over here, Locke Leeds, who you need to check out Dockie's channel if you're interested in analytics, statistics, and tactical analysis of football. Lockie, this is his full-time job, and you can check him out over on his channel as well. The details will be down below. But as the header says up here, this is The Breakdown with Lockie Leeds, very much Lockie's show. And I wanted to get Lockie on to talk about the games. And what we're going to do is try and dissect the games, not in an opinion way, but more in a tactical analysis kind of way, or from a coaching perspective, using both of our backgrounds to kind of look at the football match from a slightly different perspective. So those who want to know the tactical differences, long term, we'll be getting into them in a lot more detail, but today will be more our first one, just get it off the ground and get it moving and start off. But Lockie, delighted to have you. Another win for Leeds last night, albeit not our best performance, but games last year that we might not have come away with any points from, and this year we get 3 points. So a positive step forward for Leeds last night.
Yeah, look, yeah, it's the Championship. I think, to be fair, looking back on it now, I didn't realise how physical Watford were in terms of, you look at each of the players, they're all really big and all fast, one or the other. They had the guy in the middle, whatever his name, the guy from Georgia.
He's very good.
Yeah, very technical, wasn't he? Very good. But everyone else around them was just very quick, very strong, very powerful. So there was kind of, those are the games last year I think we really struggled in. And there were times in this one where we did struggle. We'll get into it, obviously. But yeah, tough game, mate, to be honest. Harder than I think some people were saying it were easy, Mr. Wayman. But it'll never be easy. These teams are competitive. Cleverly, obviously, he said in his press conference before about he wants a reaction. And first 10 minutes, he didn't get that, did he? We were all over him first 15. But they came back into the game, which was obviously the tempo issue that we're going to speak about. But yeah, tough game, mate. But we came out with the 3 points in the end. And probably could have scored more in the last 15 when Joseph Pirro had them chances. So.
Yeah, I think we'll get into that in a bit more detail as we go through. One of the problems for Leeds last season was we just weren't creating enough goal-scoring chances against teams that played deeper or lower blocks. I think what we saw yesterday was even when Watford did sit a bit deeper, Leeds still created 3 or 4 really, really good goal-scoring opportunities. Joel Pirro puts the ball straight at the goalkeeper from 8-10 yards out, where he should probably find a corner. Willie Gnonto has one that goes straight down the goalkeeper's throat. Brendan Aronson has an opportunity to get a second. And then we have the very obvious one of Mateo Joseph near the end of the game, where a beautiful ball from Dan James to the outside the foot. All he has to do is just find a corner with the ball, and unfortunately, it's straight at the keeper. So after giving Mr. Backman a difficult opening 10 minutes, Lockie, I think the shots that we took after that were very much there to help him ease him back into the game when he relaxed.
Very Leeds of us.
Very Leedsy, very Leedsy. But a big thing for me, and I would be more worried if we weren't creating the chances against these sides, the fact that we had so many clear-cut chances. On another day, we will take them as long as we can keep doing that. And we have been this year. Like it is a different Leeds structure to last year. It's not reliant on Chris Somerville coming in from the left-hand side. It's not reliant on Georgie doing something magic. It's a harder working team. Plenty of crosses into the box. Jaden Bogle getting very involved yesterday as well. So was Junior Firpo. We're going to miss Firpo now for the next game as well. He has a suspension, so likely that Sam Byron will come in there. And we might see Isaac Schmidt at some point in the near future. But how we're going to do this today is we're going to go through the first 10 minutes of the game and talk about Leeds' start. Then the drop-off. And why the drop-off happens. Was it Watford being very, very good? Or did Leeds change something? Or were moments in the game changed that caused that? We're also going to look at the change that Farke made as well in the game and the impact that they had during their time on the pitch. And then a couple of partnerships to dissect. We want to look at the centre-back partnership between Stroke and Rodon. We also want to talk about Tanaka and Rotwell in the middle of the park again. We have to talk about Tanaka, but if you want a longer talk about Tanaka, Lockie's got a really good breakdown of Tanaka's open a few games as well. You can check that out. And then we'll talk about the front line, but we will get into the missed opportunities as well. And we're going to have a little bit of a chat about Gilavogi, who has signed for Leeds United today, albeit just waiting on an official announcement. But we'll get into that as well. But Lockie, let's talk about the first 10 minutes. Leeds come out of the traps like a hare, like just rapid fire. The kind of football I've been begging to see from Leeds. High tempo, quick movement of the ball, causing problems for Watford. They didn't know what to do. And yes, there's 2 goalkeeper mistakes, but Leeds were just non-stop for that first 10 minutes. I thought the best I've seen Leeds play since the Norwich playoff semi-final against second leg.
Right.
What were your thoughts on the first 10 minutes?
Yeah, it was relentless, wasn't it? It was Gnonto in them first 10 minutes, I think, was unplayable. Every time he got that ball, he was so positive. He drove. He did that little thing where he drops a little deeper, and Bogle goes on, and no one marks him because they don't know who's marking him here. So And once he drives it, you're in trouble. Ramazani as well, I thought was really sharp at the start. Obviously, when he went off, that changed the game. Yeah, we just looked really, really relentless. Second balls. I do think, though, the more Watford grew into it physically, we struggled more. I think at the start, we decided, we won most first, second ball, which helped a lot. And it's when we stopped doing that, which was a problem for me. But then first 10 minutes, we won everything. We dictated everything. The passing was crisp. It was sharp. It was direct. And then front four, or the three behind the striker, were just relentless. Driving at the defenders again, as usual. Aronson, again, with the energy, driving forward with it. I thought it was better for me personally yesterday. Yeah, that's the peak of us. When we play like that, no one in this league can even come close. And that's the consistent thing we need to find, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. The drop-off then happens.
Yeah.
And this is the question mark for me, because we've seen this before with Leeds, and usually it's in the second half of a game. Leeds are a goal or two up, and then we see Leeds start to just drop back and drop back and drop back. And so far this year, we've been comfortable out of possession. Against Sunderland, outside that mistake in the last minute, I didn't feel like they were going to do anything against us. I thought we were comfortable out of possession. And then against Sheffield United, I thought we were very comfortable out of possession. Again, wasn't worried. Last night, a little bit different. The drop-off happens very, very early. Now, there's three different areas for me. One, does the drop-off happen because Daniel Farke says to the Leeds team, drop? Because Farke makes a comment after the game where he says at 2-0, he was concerned that we would get complacent. And that, to me, popped a little question in my head. And it might be nothing, and I am very much speculating. But to me, is it a manager's decision to go, all right, sit back a little bit now and just hold for a minute and regroup? Was it the fact that Ramazani gets injured in those moments as well, and Solomon comes on, and Ramazani was a lightning rod in the first couple of minutes and was very, very busy, and maybe that changes the tempo? Or did that little break from Ramazani's injury give Watford a chance to regroup, settle into the game, and Cleverly to just get his team rejigged and set back up to what Leeds had done the first 10 minutes, Locke?
I think the latter's a very big part of it. I think when that happened, it was quite a long break, wasn't it? And Cleverly got a few players over and actually spoke to them. So they clearly adapted something. And of course, I think actually with Solomon, obviously currently he's not as sharp as we will be. And if he stays fit, he'll get there and people will see how good he is. But when Ramazani goes, I think we're a little bit one-dimensional. And I think they fed into that and they started to surround Nonto a little more, win them second balls and kind of get more on the ball and grow into it. And that's when we start to drop. Now, I'm not bothered about the drop because I do think for the most part, when we do drop, we're really good. Teams don't really get in. But in the second half, or at the end of the first half, it crept in a little bit. In the second half, predominantly, they adapted something which allowed them to really break our block. And I think it was actually really smart what they did. Fairly simple. I'll break it down in a minute, Joe. But yeah, I think what they did was they knew potentially that if they could get all of the ball, we'll drop a little bit. We do that. Quite good at that. But they picked gaps in it. Teams have not done that this season. But they what they did was really good and really smart. And they used their attributes really well to actually, break us down. So, yeah, a bit of all, though. I think as a setting in this team, there is a setting where we go, let's drop deep. But that's all right with me because we're still devastating on the counter and we still maintain the ball and all that stuff. And we look good in those positions. We did against Sheffield United at times and they could do anything against us. But this is probably the first team, actually, where when we've sat deeper, it broke us a little bit. And I think I mentioned before, Joe, that Strauch and Farke were speaking at the end of the game in the middle when everyone was doing the clap, which doesn't usually happen for a long time as well, about 5 to 10 minutes. And I think they were asking what happened there. Why did we get break down? Because Strauch was getting dragged really wide, 1v1, and that was a big part of it. So, yeah, to ramble on about the point you asked, I think it's a mix of all. I think it is instruction at time, but I think it's instruction with intent. I think we lost the intent when we won the ball back. We didn't try to play out for that period. We tried to go long, and then they just fed to that, and they won the second balls, and then they came straight back at us when we were out of shape. So it got a bit messy for me. Yeah, it got a bit messy.
Tony DeRigo said on commentary, it's very hard to go back up through the gears once you've gone down through them. It's something that I've seen in my career, and I've always talked to my players and my coach teams is about maintaining a standard once you get to a certain level, is just keeping that level. Find your level in the game and stay at that level and try and push. And it's always a dangerous scoreline, 2-0. I mean, one goal, either whoever gets the next goal essentially can dictate what happens in that game. If you get a third, game's over. your opposition score. It gets a bit nervy. And last night, Watford get that goal inside the first couple of minutes of the second half. Leeds just didn't come out in the second half. Locke very much asleep. And there was some shouts from the crowd. You could see it. And Joe Roden was getting annoyed at one point. And Jaden Bogle had a shout at the team at one stage of wake up. And that was just before the goal came. And we can pick out individuals, but there's probably 4 or 5. The ball shouldn't go into the wide area in the first place. Then it goes there, and Firpo's weak, Aronson's weak, Stroke is weak, and then it bounces off Roden and comes back out, and it's tapped in. It's a bad goal to concede, but very much from the physical side of the game that Watford brought to that. Ba was very physical throughout the game. Sissoko's an experienced head in the middle of the park, was very physical for long periods of that game before he went off. I kind of just felt in the first 5 minutes of the second half today came out and decided, right, we're going to use our physical strength and our bigger side and really put that on you and see how you deal with it. And we had a little wobble. But I think
we did.
After that, we started to just gradually just build ourselves back into the game. And you were pretty comfortable in the last 10 minutes of the game. I wasn't pretty comfortable in the last 10 minutes. But talk to me about that. Where was your head at going into that last 10 minutes?
Yeah, I think when we made the changes around 70th, I think they helped straight away. Dan James coming on, just a different outlet, a ball in behind. Everything we tried was narrow down that left side, and they just predicted it and just smothered it. But once we had Dan James, we could do that ball in behind to the right, and he'll get there. And then Mateo Joseph, he came on with the energy and occupied the centre backs, which Pirro wasn't doing. And by the end, he's not as good at that as Joseph, and he was probably tired. When we brought Mateo on, he unsettled the centre backs, and then he couldn't do the ball into Bar. So changes helped for me, and then I just got a feeling, I don't know. Sometimes I just feel like I will be all right here. And I think we were. Look, they tried and stuff, but we always maintained that threat. I think when them two came on as well, obviously Mateo missing a big chance, and this is the bit of the game that he needs to sharpen up a little bit. Big header, 6 yards out, good ball from Dan James. He just keeps doing things, Dan James, that you don't expect Dan James to do.
I love him.
I love him. Yeah, he's so underrated, but should score. And then you 3-1 up, and then you calm. But we didn't get that, and that's a theme as well that we're seeing this season. That the goal to make us calm never seems to come until it's like the 95th minute. But so yeah, honestly, Joe, just when we made them chances, once we got used to him, I just felt we're all right personally. But I understand why you weren't. But yeah, when Meslier was letting it roll into his box, you think you just pick it up. Not
that it's got anything to do with Meslier or Meslier. It's for me, I thought actually he had a very good game last night. Distribution a bit dodgy for longer balls, but a lot of them are just getting rid of it. And I'm okay with him doing that when he needs to do it. Get rid of it, that's fine, take the pressure off. Makes 2 really good big saves for Leeds. That one he goes full strength in the first half is a really, really good save because it is nesting in the bottom corner. Yeah. And then he makes 2 kind of reaction saves near the front post in the second half from set pieces and that. Yes, he punches the ball from corners, but he's always going to do that. He's never going to stop doing that. But he was getting some distance on them yesterday as well. So I thought he was okay. But you just don't want it to be him in those final few minutes who decides, I'm going to drop the shoulder and run back to my goal with the ball. And then you're like, please don't. I don't want to be talking about you after the game. I'd rather not be doing that. Let's just play it safe, get rid of the ball, and let someone else worry about it. But all was good in the end. We get the win, not the best performance. But Farke is very pleased with that performance, Locke. And I think these are the games that will show the difference between this side this year and this side last year. Go back to Stoke, Rotherham, Birmingham last year, where Coventry just coming up against sides that were tricky to beat and put it up against us, and we didn't beat them. This year, there's a definite change there. Leeds are finding new ways to beat them. As I said, we're now creating chances in the final third against low blocks where we weren't. Brendan Aronson's having a really good time in there as well. He's making some very clear chances for players. And the 2 wide men as well. Ramazani, when he was on, was excellent. Nanto's been very good this year. Last night, his passing was a little bit off, but still worked hard. And then when James came in, he did the job. And the obvious choice between swapping Joseph and Pirro at that stage of the game when space was starting to open up. I think everything on paper was fine last night. It was just that one goal just made everyone a little bit more dodgy, a bit more worried. We want to see Leeds just find that momentum, find that level in the first half, and just stay at it for a while. Yeah, when you score 2, it's great. You can sit back, but don't go get the third. Then you can drop off, kill the game first, and then look at it. And it's my only concern with this Leeds team is that there's always a mistake there, and all the goals that we've conceded this year have been from mistakes. They haven't been because teams have outplayed us or opened us up. They've been errors for most part outside the Portsmouth game in the first game of the season, which was nuts. But so we're kind of making some of our own downfall, which is a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing because you can work on that. You can fix that. Mistakes can be fixed. Shape and structural issues are far more worrying. I would say.
I agree. Yeah, there is little things like you said, and there is things you can fix. And clearly, Farker and Strout were talking about them after the game, which is they don't usually do on the pitch. Farker usually a bit worse to dangerous, but it's something Strout really wants to get off his chest. So it's good that they're having a discussion, that they're figuring it out. I was just going to show you a graphic, James, that's all right, just on that little problem that I think might have been. And just to clarify to people, ignore the Watford numbers and stuff. And ignore all the lines. That's just for personal stuff. Don't ignore all the silly lines. So the issue was here. So there, I think it was Pollock, their right centre-back. So their goal actually came from Strout. So we won the ball, but Strout's first instinct was to just boot it. And they won the second ball in this area. Now, the issue, what they were doing really well, actually, this defender here, they'd go long, but what they'd do is, so Ince, who was on the wing predominantly, he took inside. Now, this guy, his first name's Georgie, so I'm going to call him Georgie.
Shaka.
Yeah, great name, but I can't say it.
Very good game.
Yeah, he's a very good player. I got told about him actually from some Watford fans. So yeah, he's a very good player. What he was doing actually, he was deeper, but when they attacked, when they played long, he occupied the centre backs. But actually, what they did really well. So Firpo now, because he'd go there, Ince drop deep, which meant Firpo was kind of in who do I mark? So he'd push up, which meant Barr did this. So the ball would go in there, Strauch dragged out 1v1. And that's, you don't want Strauch out wide 1v1 with a quick winger. He's a centre back. So this is what they did a lot. They did it 4 or 5 times in the game. It was this situation, and it was literally just a long ball here. Because Ince dropped narrow, Firpo wasn't sure whether to track. Is that Tanaka's job or Rothwell's job? We're a bit like this. It was kind of 1v1 a lot of the time, and this is where the problem came into it for me. And then you saw it 2 or 3 times in this situation where Strauch's out wide 1v1 versus their winger. And obviously, that's an issue. Likewise, as well, they did the similar thing. But at times, it happened with Firpo. So Ince would drop higher up to make a 2 there to occupy the centre-backs. Their deeper player would drop in to occupy Tanaka. So basically, the idea was they occupied players in this area so they could go 1v1 out wide with their quick winger. And that's what we saw, Firpo getting beat 2 or 3 times by Barr. So that was an issue. That was the main problem for me. Obviously, Georgie as well, in the first half, just found little pockets. So their other wing would stay really wide, or the fullback would stay really wide, occupying Bogle, and he'd just find spaces behind Rothwell and Tanaka here, and he'd turn on it. And look, these two are really good players. Barb, I didn't realise he's 21 years old. He came from Fortuna. Yeah, I know, crazy. Yeah. Came from Dusseldorf, where Tanaka played as well, so probably knew him. But yeah, 21, good player him, and he's a good player as well as Georgie. So that's what they did. So how we stopped that, so what we did for the main point was, I think Firpo just stayed a little deeper, and Solomon dropped a little more when he came on. Obviously, it's Ramazani, just to occupy this space. So then, if they were 1v1, you've got more bodies around the ball. Rothwell as well, I realised, dropped a little more to the right, so Rodon could push over if he needed to, if it was like this, just a little bit like this. So then you've got a 3v2, right? You've got 3 defenders, 2 midfielders, and then a 2v2 out wide. So you're in a better position. But a key part as well was when Mateo Joseph came on, obviously, that ball stopped happening.
It's pressed. Yeah.
Pressed straight away, boom, stop happening, cut it off. Or he'd do this thing where he'd go here and he made them go more central.
Yep.
And this is where Stroud, Rodon, whoever it was in there, Tanaka, win the header, win the second ball. And that's where I think we got to grips with it more. And obviously, when Nonto went off, when we won it back, where's Dan James? He's here. The outlet was, give it this guy out here. He's really quick. So yeah, that's just a little thing I want to show.
If you hold that where it is, just 2 things just real quick to point out. When you talk about defending from the front and what you get from Mateo Joseph that you don't get from Joe Alpiru, it's that. I mean, that sounds like a very simple thing to do, just run over and press the ball. But it's super effective in preventing them playing the way that they want to play. But as you said, even changing the angle of approach from him forces the centre-back to go into an area that they don't want to go into. So they end up playing the ball long down the middle, which, as you said, benefits Leeds perfectly. But that little movement just to stand the opposite side to remove that option is a huge part of that. I talk about Ilya Gruev off the ball and what he does very well. And you look at intercepted passes from a lot of players, and Ilya Gruev never gets that credit because his body positioning, his intelligence is so good that he knows how to fill the gaps between the lines to prevent the ball ever going into that area and forcing. So you never see the ball actually go past him. It tends to go around him. But that means he's doing his job very well, that nothing is coming through him. And that prevents those kind of goals from happening. But it's a momentary switch off. But if you were just to condense that, if that ball goes into where Firpo is, there was one thing I wanted to point out that I saw last night. When Leeds got congested, when the area got really packed over there, so when they all went over and it got really congested, this is when I really started to enjoy what Ao Tanaka brings to Leeds, because it was in these moments where it was getting a little bit frantic, and all of a sudden Tanaka would come in, get the ball, and you'd see these little triangles. So Tanaka would get it off Firpo, he'd go to Ramazani with the ball, and then Ramazani would come straight back to Tanaka, by which stage Ba has pressed Ramazani, and then he just rolls the ball back to Firpo, who goes into stroke, and Leeds go out the other side. Calm as you like, relaxed, with just one or two little passes. Lovely stuff.
And then obviously the outlet of Joseph as well, and the outlets of James high up, making them channel runs. And that's what we needed. Another thing as well, just to expand on that, is we spoke about Gruev and Ampadu, what they did for me and what we will miss. And this is why we need to bring in a CDM, is just, it wasn't really bad, to be honest. It was more ignore the mess. Let's talk about Georgie. So he'd get into these spaces, but what he'd do is he'd anticipate where the ball was going to go. And because Tanaka and Rothwell, they're not defensive-minded players, they're smart players who can adapt in games, but they don't know where he's going to run, right? If you have a Gruev or an Ampadu in there, either or, they know exactly where the space is. In fact, Ampadu would give him the space in here, and then that ball would try come in from whoever, and he'd read it. That was kind of the difference, and that's the defensive-minded side of it for me, and that's why we need to bring in CDM. But yeah, those are just some points that I picked up from the problems they caused us. I mean, say little problems, they're actually big problems.
But it proves a point, though. It's not just Leeds. And that's we can get bogged down. I mean, if you look at all the different YouTube channels of all the different teams, we're super critical of Leeds all season. And if you watch all of these channels, they're all talking about, Leeds are levels above everyone else. They'll coast this league. They'll finish above it. Like, no one is saying, even the second tier podcast, I briefly looked at today. I don't listen to it because I think the lads say things about Leeds to get clicks, and they shouldn't. They just focus on talking about sport, but they don't. But I did watch it, and they have a headline going, "This is their year." And I was like, it feels like it should be, because the metrics all indicate that Leeds are better than they were this time last year. The issues that we're coming up against this year that we came up against last year, we have different answers for this season. So there's progress there for me. And it might not be the perfect fluid football that we want to see just yet, but we haven't gone to our stride yet. And we know last year when Leeds did get into their stride after Christmas, if we're in and around where we are now come that run, Leeds could be in a very, very good position come May. And that's the be all and end all of all of this. Locke, you want to talk about partnerships a little bit. I want to talk about the centre back pairing for me of Stroke and Roden. I thought they did a decent game again yesterday. I thought Stroke had a very, very good game. Yes, he was weak for the goal, but one instance doesn't make a performance for me. He had a very, very good game. Outside of that, he reads the game very, very well. Another calming influence on Leeds. And gets in players' ears when they need it as well. Rodon and Stroke at different points were having a very, very vocal burst of what was in front of them as well, telling them to tighten things up a little bit when Leeds were out of possession. But they're really starting to grow as a partnership together, the two of them. I'm really happy with what I've seen from them so far. And again, as you pointed out, that Stroke mistake doesn't happen if Pirro presses or Firpo drops into his natural position. That gap isn't created. So what's your thoughts on the two of them so far?
Yeah, they had a tough one. It was a tough test, I think, because as we've mentioned, Bar, 21 years old, looking like he did, he's got a future in just from that. Good player in. Probably want to watch, to be fair. But yeah, he was really confident as well. He drove. But the thing about a back five is, and I hate playing against back five, I despise it. It's so difficult because everything's different. You know, with a back four, it might be 3-3, it might be 4-2-3-1, but relatively there's four at the back. Yeah. This is different. Everything's odd. So you've got to adapt. And it was predominantly two up top, with Barr and Georgie, the other guy, who was very good as well. So it was kind of 1v1, the centre-backs. And they're not used to that, are they, them two? They used to be one up top. So it's a different, tough, more physical test. And that's fair play at Watford. That's the test you need to give us, I think. But I think for the most part, Rodon, for me, especially dealt with it really well. I think Strauch had the harder of it with Barr on him, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, bar the goal. But apart from the goal, I think they did do well. And especially when the pressure came on their defenders more, anything that came centrally, Strout dealt with really well. He won every header. It was brilliant. It was just their 1v1 situations out wide where you don't want your centre-back in any shape. You don't want your centre-back 1v1 out wide with a quick winger. That's deadly, And that's a test for them. And I think, again, talking about the conversation, him and Farkrad, I'm sure it would have been something about, why was I so wide so much? What did we do wrong there? But this is part of growing as a footballer, right? They need to have these challenges. If they want to play in the Premier League, you're going to get guys like Bar who are 10 times more experienced,
But you have to give the opposition credit as well for their tactics that forced those mistakes, that they've identified how to cause Leeds problems, and they've gone out and done their job as well. So again, it's not just Leeds' game plan that dictates what happens and what we see. It's the opposition, and Tom Cleverley's doing reasonably good with Watford, although their away record's not great. Their home record's very, very good. So he is clearly doing some of the right things. And it's about how they play as well and how Leeds dealt with it. And I thought that they had a very clear game plan. They were going to be very physical. Baselli, I'm a big fan of. Obviously, he's Irish as well. Yeah. So I really enjoy what he can do. Bogle kept him pretty quiet. And he's not a quiet player. He's a very skillful, tricky player. He's got a very strong burst of pace. Did very, very well. Good, I think. Bogle was very good, yeah. And Firpo as well. But they had a tough time on that far side of the pitch. There was a lot of things going on over there. And moving to the middle of the park, let's talk about them. Let's talk about Tanaka and Rotwell. And I want to just go through a couple of stats. Aronson as well is worth talking about as well. Tanaka and Aronson have covered a huge amount of land or air in the last couple of weeks with their travel. Tanaka over 18,000 miles. Aronson over to the States and back. And Aronson hadn't really been playing for the USMNT side. He'd been on the bench, but not really playing a huge amount of minutes. Pochettino plays him in both games. He plays over 75 minutes in both of those games. Tanaka plays 90 minutes in the second one, but man of the match against Sheffield United. But even last night when it wasn't perfect, 93% passing accuracy, 78 touches in the game, which is a lot. People might not sound. I remember doing a review of a Leeds game under Bielsa, not for this channel, but for football. I was trying to point out how a number 6 plays. To my team I was coaching at the time, and I was using Calvin and Bielsa's style as an example. And Darren Brady, my goalkeeper, who might watch this the odd time, he'll know who I'm talking about. But one of the big things was, I think it's something like Calvin had something like 35 touches in the game, and I was thinking about his job is just to keep us ticking over, going left to right, and kind of conduct what's in front of him. Tanaka was doing that job yesterday, manages 78 touches, which shows you how involved he is in the game. 57 57 completed passes out of 61 attempted. Still gets 10 passes into the final third, despite the fact he's very clearly playing as the 6. There was that lovely moment in the second half where, again, he had that little triangle of passes, dropped the shoulder, came outside, and bends a lovely ball in front of Joel Pirou. If it's Mateo Joseph, he's probably through on goal and scores, or James, but it goes to Pirou. But brilliant. And then there was the battling side of the game from Tanaka yesterday. We got to see the more physical side of things in the game, and he didn't shy away from it. He manages 9 duel wins, and 5 out of 6 tackles are won as well. But it should also be said that Brendan Aronson, who gets a lot of stick for, does he create anything? Is he physical enough? Well, he did. He created 5 big chances yesterday we didn't score from. He wins 5 duels, has 3 defensive actions. So both of these players doing the other side of the game that they're not necessarily known for, but did it very well yesterday.
Grafting hard, working hard, and I love that in a team. And look, Joe, there's a lot of games that you'll have with your players where it ain't quite going for you. You can't have the combinations, the patterns you worked on. It's not going well. But when you don't have that, graft, work hard, just work hard, and eventually something will come. And them two epitomise that for me. Joe Rothwell as well, to be fair to him.
Yeah.
I do like Joe Rothwell. He's a good player. But yeah, Aronson and Tanaka they stand out as players who just chase and break down. The one thing I loved, I think it was in the first half, I think it was Georgie was up against Tanaka and he was just tracking him. It was down that left wing, Watford's left side. And he just followed him for 30, 40 yards and got a blocking. And look, he's not quicker than him, but he just grafted really hard to stay with him and make sure he doesn't beat him, because he knew if he beat him, would be 1v1 Marodon then in the middle of the box. So little things like that, the recovery tackle that Tanaka did near the end of the game, the sliding one, wins a foul from it. The amount of times in them tight spaces where he works hard, wins a foul, just little stuff like that. And those are players that you'd absolutely love in your team as a coach, wouldn't you? Players that just work the backside off. Even if the quality isn't working for the team, those are the players you look upon. And I think when it did drop, the reason we got out of it, obviously the subs, but I think Tanaka lifted the tempo a little bit. And he said, look, we're gonna stop booting it. We're gonna start playing a little more. And obviously with Dan James on, he had an outlet then. And yeah, mate, I was very impressed with Tanaka. He's just a joke of a player. I'm just so happy Leeds fans get to see him because he is brilliant. He's really brilliant. And Aronson, he's working through finding the type of player he is again, I think, and he's finding it a bit more. The quality, the real defined quality, I think, will come. I don't think he'll ever be this player who gets 30 goals and assists a season, but he'll be one who works hard for the team and is very effective off the ball as well, which is a huge part. So, yeah, the midfield was great, mate, but again, going into what we need, I still think we do need that defensive-minded player in there for me.
Well, let's talk about him. Just real quick on Aronson, just to say, youngest player to ever score a competitive goal on his birthday for Leeds.
Nice.
Well, in the modern time, the last person to do it was Tommy Wright when he scored at 18 in 1989. I was 8 years of age when he did that. So, so well done to Brendan yesterday. Birthday goal, had a good game, lovely finish for his goal. It definitely wasn't a wonder goal volley, as Goal announced it in their article about him today. I put it on Twitter going, tell me you didn't watch the game without telling me you didn't watch the game. Aronson scores volley wonder goals. It was a half volley tap in.
The wonder goal volley, you know, the one that came at edge of box and he kicked it right.
When he sliced over the bar, that would have been, that would have been. But he's doing well. He's doing things. He's doing all the things he needs to be doing. So that's great. Let's move on and talk about the central defensive midfield. We've heard today that Leeds are all waiting on the official announcement of signed Gilavogi on a permanent deal. Has a nice pedigree behind him in terms of clubs, Locke. But you want to talk a little bit about him today. He ticks Daniel Farke's profile box. He can play central defensive midfield and centre back. Has played in both. Been at the club for 2 weeks now. They're clearly happy what they've seen from him. What are your thoughts on Gilavogi and talk to me a little bit about him?
Just such a sensible decision. I think someone who I think the lowest level he's played at, well, it's the French league since he was a teenager, since he broke through in professional football. He's played at the top level for 10, 15 years now at good clubs. Atletico Madrid, obviously, when he was younger, Bordeaux, and obviously more recently at Wolfsburg, where he's been a mainstay for years there. So a real experienced head who's obviously played for the national team as well. He's played for France.
7 caps.
It was a while ago, but
he's still 7 French caps.
You've got that pedigree up there, you know, the brain. So
it's a good French side that he was in as well at that time.
Yeah, so it's great for me. He's not the player he used to be. Obviously, he wouldn't be playing in the Championship if he was. He'd play in the Premier League probably. But a player there with all that vast experience, and a key thing I've noticed about him, well, I've not seen much in the last few years, obviously, because he's not played a lot, and I've not been watching Mines, to be honest. But the stuff that he used to do back in the day when he was on the Champions League, watching highlights and all that stuff, and some games then, like Tanaka and Rothwell, he plays with his brain. He's a big physical profile. He's 6'2", I think. But he's a smart player. His ability to recognise where the move will develop defensively is so good. And whatever his legs are saying at 34 years old, he'll still have that mindset, that brain that knows exactly where the movement will come. Like I said, when Watford's Georgie picked up those half spaces, our two players, Tanaka and Rothwell, when we were a bit more advanced, were reacting to it as opposed to being proactive. And that's just because they're not defensive-minded players. Going forward or on the ball, them two are a joke. They know exactly where the move's going to develop. But defensively, we don't have that profile. And he is that. And that's the key thing for me. There's going to be times in games where we are crying out for that smart defensive player in front of the back two centre-backs. And he fits that bill. And bringing his experience, and for all means, he sounds like a great guy. Joe John, who did a piece on charity work he does. He's a good person to have as well. Yeah, and that is what we need for me. We need more personality, I think, more experience, and we need a CDM who's defensive-minded. Who ticks that box? He does. He ticks all of them. So not the future of the club, not a long-term plan, but for what we need right now, bring him in. I'm happy with it. Very happy, mate.
Players like Charlie Crew could do worse than talk to this guy, spend time with him during, take that experience. As we said, 218 appearances in the Bundesliga, over 100 appearances in Liga. In France, he's played for Saint Etienne, Bordeaux, Mainz, Wolfsburg, and Atletico Madrid. So he's no slouch. 34 sounds old, but in modern days, players are playing till they're closer to 40 now. So as long as he looked after himself, he should be fine. And we have the international break coming up in a couple of weeks' time, which will give him at least 2 weeks to work on fitness and get ready, because he, no doubt, Daniel Farke will want a CDM in there as soon as he possibly can. For me, I like Rothwell and Tanaka right now, but I don't think Daniel Farke is overly comfortable with both of them in there. I think he would rather have someone sitting. So this guy could come in and play. We'll wait for the official announcement later on today. But good signing, Lockie.
Top signing for what we need. He's, brilliant.
He's going to sit on the bench.
Yeah, fine.
Great.
Good guy to have on the bench. Great experience around the training ground, around the club. All that stuff is important as well for me. Again, Charlie Crew, learning from him, developing. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, Leeds doing it on the cheap will be the cynical comment that will be thrown out, but then out Tanaka cost 3 million quid.
Exactly, yeah.
So why blow when you don't have to? So yeah, we'll see. Folks, thanks for joining us for this. This has been great. Lockie, really appreciate this. Don't forget, go out and check out Lockie's page. There's a full breakdown of Tanaka coming, and he's got a video on him currently now as well as the analytics from Leeds games and player ratings as well that you can check out in a bit more detail if you're into that kind of thing. You can check that out. It's definitely one of my go-tos after every game. I like to see, did I see the game the way everyone else saw the game? And Lockie goes into a bit more minute detail. So
do you know what, Joe, as well? I realised, you know why you weren't calm and I was? Because I'm an analyst and you're a coach. So you're on the sidelines. You're the one there. And
I'm expecting mistakes. I'm expecting mistakes.
Although I must confess, I am a very agitated analyst. I should be more calm. There is games last year where I got very angry while watching. So yeah. But, yeah.
Lucky I went on Friday night. I went with my friend Sinead to watch Shamrock Rovers play Drogheda United. Rovers trying to win the league here. Drogheda United trying to avoid relegation. And I didn't have any skin in either of the game. I don't really support either of the two teams, but Drogheda are my local side, so I went to see it. And I enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed watching the game. I had no skin in it at all. I didn't get worked up at any point. Saw a lovely goal from Shamrock Rovers. Didn't bother me in the slightest. So when there's skin in the game, it's impossible. It's impossible to let emotion, I keep emotion in the box. So understandable, Lucky. Right, we'll pack it in and we'll go. Folks, let us know what you think of this in the comments. Anything you'd like to see extra. We are working on this, but it will be more detailed once we get back to one game a week and we've got some time to actually sit down and do this properly. But we really appreciate you watching the channel and supporting us. Go check out Lucky, and I'll talk to you tomorrow for more Leeds news. See you then.